Welcome to the Daily AI News Digest. This broadcast is sponsored by bestai.org. It's July 7th, 2026, and today we're cutting through the noise to look directly at the market's cold realities. I'm your host, and over the next few minutes, we will analyze the structural transformations currently reshaping the international machine intelligence ecosystem. Let's look at the data.
On the agenda today, first, we'll track the biggest market moves. Then, we'll examine current product and model realities, followed by shifting global regulations. Finally, we'll wrap up with the analyst's take.
Starting with our first segment, Biggest Moves Today, focusing on market scale and corporate consolidations.
The frontier of this sector is no longer just about software, it is fundamentally shifting toward heavy industrial infrastructure and capital consolidation. Case in point, following a record-breaking initial public offering, SpaceX has now reached a valuation exceeding $2.1 trillion. As part of this corporate restructuring, the company has officially absorbed Elon Musk's xAI into a newly rebranded entity called SpaceXAI. The standalone xAI brand is effectively being phased right into the aerospace giant.
The underlying strategy of this $1.25 trillion all-stock acquisition becomes crystal clear when you look at their recent FCC filings. To bypass the severe bottlenecks on terrestrial power grids, SpaceX is planning to deploy up to 1 million low Earth orbit satellites. The goal here is to create a distributed inference network. If securing power for data centers on Earth is a bottleneck, the market's brute force solution is to simply build them in space. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the scale of terrestrial capital deployment is just as stark. Anthropic and specialized energy provider TeraWulf have finalized a multi-decade physical capacity agreement. This deal is valued at roughly $19 billion in contracted revenue. Looking at the execution details, this is a 20-year lease agreement for 401 megawatts of critical IT load located at the Justified Data Campus in Kentucky. Phase 1 delivery is targeted for the second half of 2027, with the full campus ramping up by early 2028. This move clearly illustrates a structural market shift. Frontier model capacity is officially migrating from short-term elastic cloud contracts toward long-duration industrial-scale physical infrastructure commitments. Procurement has become a multi-decade strategic play.
Moving on to Section 2, Product and Model Realities. Let's look at a data-driven benchmark breakdown.
The competitive pressure on proprietary models is compounding rapidly. Looking at the latest results from SWE-bench Pro, which remains the industry standard for measuring agentic coding capabilities, Claude Fable has established a new ceiling with an 80.3% pass rate. But the most critical data point here is actually in the middle row. The Chinese open-source model, Longcat 2.0, operating on a free MIT license, has quietly surpassed GPT 5.5's pass rate, scoring 59.5% against GPT 5.5's 58.6%. Highly capable open-source alternatives are aggressively compressing the margins of established proprietary systems.
However, pass rates don't tell the complete story. We have to analyze how these models behave when they fail. Fable 5 tends to default to what we call overcorrection. It correctly edits a file, but then introduces new errors through unnecessary thoroughness. GPT 5.5, on the other hand, suffers from the shallow patch. It fixes the primary issue, but frequently fails to account for secondary code-based dependencies. Understanding these specific operational profiles is absolutely crucial for any engineering team integrating these models into a production pipeline.
Another operational reality to factor in is speed. While Fable 5 boasts a higher pass rate, it comes at the cost of generation speed. It processes at 38 tokens per second, which is nearly half the speed of GPT 5.5's 72 tokens per second. For interactive developer sessions where latency is a critical metric, GPT 5.5 maintains a distinct operational advantage. Ultimately, it's a calculated trade-off between accuracy and output latency. That brings us to Section 3, Regulation, Policy, and Business Signals, focusing on global legal and governance shifts. As infrastructure and model capabilities scale, the international policy environment is rapidly hardening. We're seeing governments move from theoretical discussions straight into concrete legal frameworks. At the inaugural UN Global Dialogue on AI Governance in Geneva, Secretary General Antonio Guterres issued a clear directive, stating, "Machines can inform, but humans must decide and answer." He coupled this with an urgent call addressing the escalation of battlefield automation, while also highlighting the rapidly rising carbon and water footprints of the data centers powering this entire sector.
Drilling down into specific jurisdictions, we're tracking disparate but severe regulatory actions worldwide. The UN is pushing for strict environmental transparency, demanding public carbon accounting and a mandate for 100% renewable energy by 2030. At the regional level, the state of Illinois has introduced the AI Safety Measures Act. This imposes mandatory audits and up to $3 million in financial penalties for catastrophic model failures. Over in Europe, the Netherlands is executing an international AI strategy heavily focused on supply chain security and reducing reliance on non-EU cloud infrastructure.
Finally, Section 4, the analyst's take. Let's look at the market synthesis and realities.
To synthesize what these corporate, technical, and regulatory shifts actually mean for enterprise strategy, we need to bypass the marketing hype. Here are the cold business realities. First, the true bottlenecks are no longer just the algorithms. They are grid interconnection, power, and cooling buildouts. The frontier is definitively shifting to physical infrastructure monopolies. Second, procurement now requires multi-decade capital commitments. Third, legacy proprietary models are facing aggressive margin pressure from highly capable open-source challengers like Longcat 2.0. And finally, global compliance is no longer a theoretical exercise. It is resulting in hard financial penalties and sovereign security mandates.
This brings us to the stark operational reality for anyone managing capital or deploying technology in this sector right now. As physical infrastructure contracts stretch to 20 years and open-source models outpace proprietary systems, enterprise leaders must critically evaluate if their strategic planning accurately accounts for these rapid shifts.
Thank you for joining this broadcast of the Daily AI News Digest. For continued objective analysis, be sure to visit our sponsor at bestai.org. Moving forward, the market will be closely watching TeraWulf's permitting execution timelines and the pending unwalling of GPT 5.6. But we leave you with this final crucial question. Are you preparing your enterprise for a future defined by multi-decade power commitments and tightening legal liability? Or are you still operating on the assumptions of yesterday's cloud market?